Thanks for joining us for political talk on another PolitiPod Live.
I'm Matt Nisanoff.
And I'm Tom Bickle, here to discuss current political events. Tonight we'll cover some Trump news, have a word on our current First Lady Melania Trump. We will cry for Argentina, have some economics, private and public. We'll talk about a couple of political races, and we'll have the latest on Pam Bondi. We will also have our regular segments, Fascism Creeps and Election Central. But for now, we start with Trump
Trump
news.
news. I think the big story I think everyone has heard this past week has been the MRI, the need to have an MRI. He 6 months ago had a annual health checkup, and according to him, of course, he's of excellent health, and I'm sure he's saying probably 6'5" now, maybe 125, 130 pounds. Yeah, so
So, absolutely.
exactly. So he's perfectly healthy according to him, and yet 6 months later, here we are, and he requires an MRI, which is not a common thing during an annual checkup. It's usually there's something that causes the doctor to want you to have an MRI, and also it's come out that he started bragging about having taken a cognitive test, one of those man, person, woman camera
Camera
television
TV.
TV
Yeah.
things. Um,
Covfefe.
and he even went to the extent of challenging two Congress people, Democrats, AOC and Talabi, I think is the other one, Rashid Talabi, and saying
Sounds
to
right.
them, you should have to take the test that I took. And it's so difficult that I'm sure I'd still do better than you. And everybody else is saying, well, it's not a test. It's actually even though it's called a cognitive test, it's really you're doing it against yourself. You're not trying to compete against other
And
people here.
and yet he
But
has still failed.
exactly, yeah, exactly. We should put together a GoFundMe and see if we can raise enough to help these two Democratic Congress people make a decision to take the test and compare the results. Although he then would lose he would then say the results never really existed, and he can't find the
Rigged.
paperwork, and it won't be released, and they'll
Fake news.
release. Yeah, right. He'll
NDAs
release
can't talk about it.
exactly. He'll release visual tests for glasses instead, and say that should be good enough for you. And uh, the regular sort of, um, but it is actually noteworthy that they had him do these tests again. Um, Whatever you think, uh, good, bad, or indifferent, it is not common in an annual checkup to have an MRI and a cognitive test unless there's a reason. The doctor's concerned enough to want to check them.
You have to wonder if
And
the doctor was doing a lot of this. Hey, over here, buddy. Quit quit squeezing the plastic breast exam breast.
yes, sir. Put down the pen. No more poems on on the bodies. No, come on, cut that out.
Huh.
Uh,
So I hear I have a couple of conversations about this with people, and that was the first thing I thought is what you said about you don't just take an MRI because you feel like it, because everything's fine. You take an MRI when there's a problem, and you want to check on that problem and see what the cause is or how bad it's gotten. On the other hand, devil's advocate, I was talking to somebody and they made a little bit of sense. They said, that's true unless you're rich and you can just have MRIs whenever you want, just like, just like anything else. Just get one. Hell, get two. Make a Christmas card out of one of them. So there's that, but yeah, he's if he was in stellar health, I could buy that. He's not in stellar health. He looks like he's got things strapped under his pant leg, some sort of fluid being held or retained or dispersed. Who knows? Uh, he could be Bane by now. Bane is a Batman villain who has a special juice that pumps right into his spinal cord. And anyway, Yeah. So I tend to think there's a problem or several. I think he's coming back from a stroke. Uh, Somebody noticed a certain time pattern that 3 months ago he was when he supposedly when he disappeared, maybe had a stroke, and then the MRI was like 3 months after that, which is about time you check in on something like that. We'll never know. We can speculate, and I sure love conjecturing on the total physical damage he's accruing day by day. It is, it is that, you know, but we'll never know until until the regime falls and people talk and there's hearings and people sell books and want to get on a talk show and shit like that. So
Until the documents
until
are brought
then,
out,
I'm sorry.
right? Until the documents are brought out of the bunker,
That's
and
right.
then
So
maybe
until
we'll.
then, we'll just have to revel in the speculation.
And to be fair to him, I mean, it could be a new kink he has. He may be into MRIs now. He's had other propensities in the past, and maybe this
Right.
is just his new thing.
You
So it
know
could be nothing more than that, and you
what
can't kink
married?
it.
Never mind. I was going to make a bad joke about marriage and lying very, very still during sex, like in an MRI. But I think I just won't pursue. I'm going to take the high road on that one, Matt. I'm gonna. It's classy of me, don't you think? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You are
Ever,
definitely a man of class for that.
ever the
Um,
gentleman.
and part of your class, you picked out this picture. Tell us more.
This one was snapped, I think, about 2 weeks ago in the Oval Office, and people couldn't help but notice the devilish aesthetic with this. You're talking about the Trump photo, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it looks like he's got sprouted a couple of horns, and I got to tell you, I presume they were always there.
There's no other picture there to compare it to, so we can't say that it hasn't
That's right.
always been there.
You
And
can't see cloven hoofs under the desk there, but again, I insist, have been and always been there.
although it does challenge South Park's version of things, where he's only dating the devil and not actually both himself and the devil, which would give a whole new
Complicated.
twist. Yeah,
Politics is complicated for sure.
yeah, fair point. And another point actually is here he is, the architect of peace, the man who has brought eternal peace to the Middle East
Of course, he
and
solved it all. Let's all go home.
peace in our time. And oh, that reminds me. Apparently, Israel's attacked Gaza in retaliation for something that that Hamas did or didn't do, didn't along the lines of the ceasefire.
Yeah, but they
And
have the solid legal ground of they started it.
right, right. So for a guy who's going to heaven, it says so in his own Bibles. If you look towards the back, I think that's
Spoiler alert.
yeah. Um, that eternal peace seems to have broken and yet been restarted. Apparently, Israel moved in with troops, did whatever it was they wanted to do, and then today they're saying uh, both Israel and Trump are saying, "Okay, it's back. The ceasefire's back in place. Nothing
Red
more
light,
can
green light.
be." Exactly.
Well, it's off,
So
it's on. We were on a break.
all
Right,
set.
it's like
And
friends.
we were
Yeah.
on a break. Too good. Yeah. So well, and
Who knew?
actually,
Who knew diplomacy on the clapper? Just
speaking of things that may well be broke, uh, Melania, the Melania Trump First Lady, haven't heard much about her, and the word on the street is that she's been playing very low key. She hasn't been um, terribly active and is not interested in being active. She has a staff that's been whittled down to 4 or 5 people. But now all these stories are coming out because the offices of the First Lady are in the East Wing, or pardon me, were in the East Wing. That's part of the building that was recently demolished. And apparently, a bunch of news stories have come out that she's not happy about that because that would have been, or that is where her official offices were, although now their other rooms have been set up. Um, what
Although,
the
if I may offer an
what
aside, I am led to believe that she's actually really happy that she doesn't have to set up any uh, Christmas decorations in the walkway that resemble the set of the movie Saw. So everybody won on that one.
That's good. That's good. Hey, um, a very Gothmas Christmas to you. And I honestly I don't know what else to say about her other than um, there certainly seems to be some problem that's there. Whatever it is, um, everybody, we all have our thoughts and ideas on it from based on what we know of what's happened between the two of them. But she just doesn't seem to. She doesn't seem too worried about doing playing the role.
She doesn't care, do you?
Yeah, right. There's your merch.
Right. She never has been very zealous about the role. I think between the transistor in the back of her head that tunes in Moscow at the end of every night and gives Trump's his orders for the next day, and some decorating opportunities. Uh, what else is I don't know. She doesn't. I don't think her heart's really in it. And this time around, I think she's even less inclined to fake it. Uh,
which is
so I
which is
guess I'm
pretty
not
wild.
surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's a wild little twist. Um,
Yeah, and I mean her offices were in the East Wing, so I mean, where you go to work doesn't even exist anymore. What's she supposed to do? Run her office out of the West Wing toilet? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I I don't know what we expect her to do. Not to sympathize with the devil, but she can't just sit out in the dirt. That's no way to run a railroad. I don't know. I'm looking for
right.
meaning in this. I'm not finding it.
Right. Yeah, she's as complicit as any other member of that family. So I don't think that it's that she doesn't want something out of it, but I just don't think it's actually playing the role. So I agree with you. And speaking of flushing things down the toilet, I think a good flush of that toilet would bring us to fascist creeps, our first segment,
Yes.
where
Bird of
we
a different
just
color.
yes, turd of a different color. Yeah, it's um so to get things moving on to whole or that portion of how fascism is creeping into America. Um, there's a lot about this deporting people to Aguilera to the Uganda.
Uganda, Liberia, Dark Side of the Moon. Sure. It's absolutely appalling. And I don't know. It's bald faced, just vile. And there's no rubric for it. There's no reason. Kilmara Albrego Garcia would have been happy to go to Costa Rica if they just wanted to get rid of him, but no, they got to. They want to send him somewhere where he can be chained to a wall for 11 hours out of 12, uh, and beaten on the bottoms of his feet or whatever it is they want to happen. They want to send him to Uganda or Liberia. I forget now. It's been a few days since I read about it. You have to put these things down, Matt, for your own mental health. Sometimes it's so confronting. This guy will never be the same already. He's already traumatized, and they're not even by half done with him. They want to send him someplace he's never been.
Right, the place where the laws don't aren't exactly up to
Yeah,
human rights.
exactly.
Yeah,
Loaded with
and
human rights violations. There's nothing. There's no good reason for that.
it's the same. Yeah, Trump just lies about everything so often that people have become numb to it. And here it is. This one is that we were going to deport violent criminals, people with
Yep,
criminal records.
the worst of the
Who
worst.
were, yeah, exactly. Where's the rest? And they're just grabbing U.S. citizens. They're the White House has passed the word down that they want 3,000 arrests a day out of ICE, and they're not even they're not capable of doing that.
Right.
So they're not hitting their goals, which means they're going to just start grabbing more people and more who are American citizens and not violent and not criminals and are citizens. And those are so I was sending them to these. I don't know if it's a black site exactly, but certainly a place that's outside of the jurisdiction, so they can say, "Well, we don't know what happened to him. That we just sent him away, and what happens to him there, we have no control over."
It's out of
So
our
it's
hands. We just threw him into a volcano. What happens when he hits the bottom is really not our concern. It's important journalistically, not that we're journalists or anything, but it's important to document all these things, just like you did, just like you listed a simple list of these grievous things that have been going on. But it's still hard to listen to. It's frustrating and it's irritating. It's provoking. It's provocative. Um, these people are being harmed. They're not just being shipped to a county jail somewhere, which it would be bad enough. They're being shipped to Alligator Alcatraz, where they're left to sleep in cold puddles and exposed to the weather and bugs and diseases and no good food, and they drink out of a toilet and all these terrible things. Um, People die. Not all these people are healthy. Some of these people need medication. Do you think they're getting it? Do you think their blood pressure, their diabetes is doing fine in the absence of medication and decent sleep and decent nutrition? Suitable climate environment, not freezing to death. Do you think they're all young and hearty and can sleep in the trees like baboons, or do you think they're suffering? Do you think they're never going to walk right? Do you think some of them will die and we'll never see them or hear from them again? This is it. These are people being harmed irreparably. They're not going to be the same if they come back at all. If we can ever find out what happened to them. These are wrongs that can't be righted. This is not something you can just sue the government. No, you'll be made whole. And no one
well,
seems to be stopping it. It's very
and the
frustrating.
it is yeah the human cost is uh, unconscionable and is not being taken into account yet, at least. I mean, hopefully yet. Um, and there's the other portion of the problem, which is since ICE can't keep up with the demands of the White House, there's this weird mixing of different departments and different areas that are being brought in. So, for instance, federal troops being brought in to allegedly protect the ICE officers. And then, on top of that, half of the ICE field commanders are actually working with border control troops, border control officers. That's never happened before, but because they have to gear up, they're grabbing folks from the border control and throwing them into the mix, and they certainly don't have the same standard or the same restrictions or understand them at least as to what to do with somebody who is a citizen in the country, and they're replacing those ICE troops and being a lot more aggressive, and they're being a lot more confrontational because the border control guys are used to doing that. And then the response to that is how the population is seeing how things are going. I mean, 54% of the population of U.S. citizens are saying that if they are undocumented and they are criminals, then they should be deported. So the majority of people like the original concept behind what was supposed to happen. But the other problem is 51% don't like how it's being done now because it's not following those ideals. And in fact, Judge Ellis, has called for the Border Control Commander, uh, Boveris. I'm not certain how the guy's name, Bovino,
Yeah, I think
uh,
it was Bovino.
but Bovino. I apologize to no one.
Don't. I could be
Um,
wrong.
yeah, exactly. But
Like I said, we're not journalists.
exactly, yeah, this exactly. We are not media, so um, But this guy has been called in by this judge who says, now I want you here every day at 6 p.m. I want you in front of me to tell me what's happening, what's going on, because this guy has been not only leading his troops into battle, he's been one of the people firing tear gas into the crowds. So he's part of the he's part of the problem. He's not certainly not a leader who is trying to live by the law. And Governor Pritzker in Illinois, Attorney General James in New York, and other public officials are starting to say, part of the response is record these things when you see them. If you are out there and you see something, don't try to grab the ICE officers. Don't try to give them a reason to don't provoke them by grabbing them or or running directly at them, but do yell and scream and cause a scene and absolutely record what you see. Record everything. And I know that in Attorney General James' case in New York, she has set up a website where you can go and download your videos if you have them. So it's a very important step to follow if you see something happen on the streets, wherever
Matt,
you are in the United States. Film it and get it to authorities, and video record everything. So now that I've mentioned that a couple of times,
I
let's
want to
move on.
point out, that litany you went through of terrible things that ICE people have done in the name of ICE. One thing that we forgot to mention is sexual assault and sexual harassment. I saw a headline recently of a woman deported out of California after reporting ICE had sexually harassed her. But in searching for the story in the news aggregator, there's a story last month, the Guardian, about ICE facilities in Louisiana being accused of sexual harassment, sexual assault. And there's a story the month before that, September, August. Anyway, it's not new, and it keeps happening. Something we haven't covered much about in the discussion about ICE is that it's been recently further revealed that they're hiring on people who aren't qualified to do the job for any number of reasons, one of which is criminal history. They could be scumbags. You like real perverts. And you don't want them in control of other people when the door slams shut. And that's just one reason you don't want untrained, unqualified people who can't do 15 push-ups, people who can't run from here to there, people who can't open an open book test on the Fourth Amendment with their own notes. And this is going to happen. And this is just one more way that people are scarred. They can't be made whole by a lawsuit. They can't get that time in their life back. Especially if they're injured or killed. And it's just unconscionable. And this country needs to move on it. Somebody needs to stop it. And if it isn't going to be our leaders, well, then I don't know who.
Well, and the hypocrisy of going after violent criminals by getting a bunch of violent criminals and giving them
Absolutely.
badges and guns and weapons and I'm sure not exactly advanced training, the Dean Canes of the world and others. Um, so yeah, excellent point. Excellent point. Um, I am going to move us on to another issue that's come up, another situation, I guess you can say, and that's down in Argentina. And we had talked about this in a previous episode where we mentioned that Trump has, to help bolster his followers and those who are of his political beliefs, is now trying to help support that in other countries in just about every way he can. And in Argentina, there was an election coming up, and to help boost his side, he put out there that the U.S. would start funneling money to Argentina. This initial thing was somehow a currency swap, where there would be $2 million of American money being swapped out for the Argentine. Is it a peso or is it a? I'm not certain what the
I
monetary
think it's a peso, but I could
currency
easily
is
be
called.
wrong.
Um, but in any case, there's $2 million US there now instead of whatever it's called. and that's all the taxpayers' money. That's all right out of
Yeah, it's a
that's not out
paycheck.
of his pocket. That's that's out of you and me. So we're sending millions of dollars to Argentina to help bolster political ideology, and at the same time, there's things here that need to be funded that are not going to get a dime. Anything about Argentina? Anything about the fascism that's creeping there?
I could go on and on about Argentina just forever. So better I don't get started. No, I don't have anything.
Well, and but I will say that they did have the election. The Trump side won. They actually won both in the Senate and the House, or their version of the Senate and the House. So they
All
have
the winning.
a firm grip on, yeah, they have a firm grip on the country, and so look out for Argentina. I think that there will be, in fact, a reason to cry for Argentina, as mentioned earlier, as you mentioned earlier. Let's talk about some things that are happening here in the good old USA. There are job cuts happening everywhere,
I'd like to
and
note that we did not support the America First paradigm. We got to America like third or fourth. So fight the power, Matt.
there you go. Exactly. I think I think we've been clear on that. Um,
No one can doubt our
so
integrity.
the and starting off on this, I think we're just talking about the loss of jobs that are starting to happen across the country, and it's not just Trump and his sycophants destroying the government by trying to lay off or fire government workers, but also the public, the private sector. Paramount cut 1,000 jobs today. Target cut 1,000 jobs, and Amazon in the next week or two will be firing 30,000 people. And that's not to mention the government shutdown, and Trump and his folks have already taken care of 100,000 jobs there. So with all the job loss, with the employment, maybe he'll do the same thing he did the first time he was
Kill a
president,
million people?
and have it kill a million and lose the jobs and cause the largest joblessness in the country. Well, since the last time he was president. But
He's
before
ahead of
that, I think
schedule. Yeah. Yeah. He could do it in his first year instead of his last.
yeah, exactly. He's got practice now, so he can be much more on
Cut
top
down
of
that
it. But
learning curve. Powerful.
he did get the Fed to make that cut that he was what he was uh, constantly harassing the head of the Fed to cut the rates by a quarter, and that has now happened twice. So that's a full half rate cut if you put everything together. So I don't know. Perhaps that was the goal. Perhaps that was the what was important. What I think of as important, or do you have anything on that? Is there anything
Oh,
of
please go ahead.
particular interest? The thing that I think of as kind of important is what's happening to the government funding of the safety net and things like SNAP and WIC. WIC is what's called the Special Supplemental Nutritional Program for Women, Infant, and Children. With the SNAP funding, that goes to 42 million Americans, and with the WIC funding, that goes to 7 million more. So that's nearly 50 million. So that's one in eight, one in eight Americans,
That's right.
something one of those two. And it's prior to now, it had an $8 billion a year budget, and Republicans are promising, they are standing up and they are promising that they will not use contingency funds to help cover the cost of SNAP due to the government shutdown. So there's a brave stand for you. Certainly not one that's been done by either party in the past, but that's the Republicans that we have today. There are lawsuits from several states. I think it's 25 different states that are challenging those decisions. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if that will work its way up to or how fast it will work its way up to the Supreme Court. and then what they will actually decide. And there's also a thing in the law that legally you're not supposed to refund. You're not supposed to give money to SNAP if it's not coming from the government. You can fund food banks, which is almost the same thing, but you're not officially allowed to give money to SNAP. So that's another weird little twist, so that the states are now trying to figure out how to do that step. So, for instance, states and municipalities are trying to figure ways of how they can fund food banks so that people can still get food to eat, which seems like something that should be a goal. Um, so there's California is taking $80 million out of their budget to put towards food banks, and New York is doing 30 million plus another 11, which they had already put towards before the shutdown. They had already wanted to add in 11, so they've now added another 30, so that's 41 million. Um, Louisiana, Louisiana's legislature wants to cover 150 million with no guarantee that there will be a reimbursement from the federal government. So they see it as a serious enough thing that they need to do that they're willing to put what they have, or you know what they they're to reach the goal, as opposed to worrying about how it's going to be taken care of on the other side. So hopefully it will be. Hopefully they will be able to get refunded. Municipalities are putting in everything they can. Pueblo County in Colorado is portioning 150,000. There's Cuyahoga County in Ohio. Sorry, when I lived in Ohio, I lived in one of the other counties. I didn't live there, and I didn't learn to
I
pronunciate
think
it.
you're doing better than I would. You go right ahead.
But the folks up there in the north, Cuyahoga County, put 20,000 into the food banks, and Emporia, Kansas, has teamed up with their local United Way, and they're extending the community food bank. Um, and even though it had been planned to be closed, they're doubling up on supporting it now. Um, so everywhere is there's a lot of people trying to put in. They're not going to be able to cover the whole amount, and there's no reason why the contingency funding set aside for just this sort of problem isn't going to be used, other than the Republicans have announced they won't. So there's some problems with that. And remember, and that's after, I should say, that's after the Trump budget bill. Remember the big ugly bill that cut had already that had promised to cut 186 billion dollars from SNAP prior to the shutdown. So they
Right.
were already planning on cutting it. They were already planning trying to gut the program, and this is just allowing them to have a reason, I guess.
Yeah, they've increased work rules to scooch people off of SNAP. People that didn't used to have to prove that they're working or looking for work or volunteering. Now they have to do it 20 hours a week or prove that they're exempt for half a dozen or a dozen reasons that are available. And it's all just to shake people off of SNAP. Get a little passionate about it. These are people who did not need to be kicked. They're already down. And we're just turning the screw on them. Um, I've quoted this before, but it keeps coming to mind every time it comes up. Farquaad and Shrek says, "Many of you may die, but it's a chance I'm willing to take." And it just seems like a Marie Antoinette let them eat cake moment. They got their golden ballroom. They're still collecting a check. They're still getting their health benefits up there in Washington, and they're not even trying. They're not even talking about patching this up and getting things back on the road. They're not even talking about pushing through legislation. They've been operating on a continuing resolution for months and months. They're still on Biden's budget because they haven't pushed anything new. I hate that I have to know this because I only only know what I'm told, but I know this. This is not my forte, and yet it's our problem. These are people, and yet I think part of the reason we're in this predicament is that the United States electorate sleeps through a lot of this stuff. They feel like it's fine on autopilot, and they're going to wake up as we careen into the ditch. I think we're careening. So maybe this will shock them awake enough that we can grab the wheel and get back onto the asphalt. It's a last ditch hope, and it's a terrible way to do business, and it may not even work. But I
Well,
hope
maybe
hope it brings
actually,
something good.
actually, you had an idea that you had been mentioned from actually from the first episode. You've been saying that the next step is we did the no kings and that was okay, and now the next step uh, is it time for the general strike that will help uh, get the point across? Because
Right.
that's the sort of next step action that there's gonna. And I've said go to worry about the elections, and that's great, and please do that. But um, there has to be something else to sort of make the point that there's another chance to do something that will even things out and not force this to go any other step. That perhaps with the voting, if the elections are not ignored or challenged, maybe they can be challenged, fine, but because we all know that they're going to be taken care of correctly, and they'll be done fairly and well, but there's got to be something else, and maybe that general strike idea is the one that you've been mentioning all along is the way we should go and get the seriousness of it across. If we can pick up on how others have done general strikes.
I'm starting to see people speculate about that and propose it seriously and give it real thought as an option and game it out. What happens on the first day? What happens on the second, third, the first week, the second week? What does success mean? I think those are good conversations to have. I think everything else we've been doing is easily ignored. It's good to see these things that some people are paying attention and are upset about the loss of lives and liberty. Um, but to make any real headway, you have to get in the way of people's money. You have to bring things to a halt and make real trouble, good trouble. It is not that long since John Lewis, said that for the last time. It hasn't been that long. We can still remember it and we can still learn from it. And I look forward to, from the Portland Frogs to the Florida Gators. I love it when we get creative, and we have not yet begun to honk honk, and get silly with it, but also make real trouble. And I can't wait to see what this country can do. And I wish we get started doing it because the hour grows late, and it's later than you think.
Where did you see that about people gaming it out, sort of thinking ahead and talking about
You know, I
success and
saw I saw an article on social media. I don't have it here in front of me, but someone said they fed it into an AI machine and then sort of reviewed the results. And it was a useful discussion. I don't know if it was answered too many questions, but they talked about it depends on who buys in. Is it just going to be some private companies, or is it going to? Are we talking hospitals and nurses? Are we talking about unions and police forces? Things like that. Things that are not so easy to ignore. You miss them when they're gone. Uh, anyway, so it was an interesting discussion. It's out there to be had.
that isn't. Maybe we can do something about that on a future
Maybe we can
episode.
start tracking it on this show.
Yeah, maybe track, maybe see if we can find somebody who can explain it in a bit more detail or help game it out, something like
Yeah,
that. Have a guest. That'd be really, I think, an excellent idea.
I look forward to the day.
Excellent. We'll start working on it. Shall we move on
I
and
think
we'll
so.
get to our other segment for the evening? There's
Absolutely.
Election Central. So, PolitiPod Live in combination with Election Central. lets you know of upcoming elections. And I'm Matt Nisanoff reporting. This covers America because the there are thousands of locations of local elections that are happening on November 4th. It's a general election day, so not every place is having it like a presidential year, but a lot of places are. Just about every place you can think of, every state has something happening somewhere in it. Some are entire states, some are just local elections. And to name a few, like the general elections that are happening on November 4th, there's a front of democracy coming across the nation. It's not limited to the following states, but it does include Maine and Florida and Iowa and Montana and Virginia and New Jersey, even in Ohio and Rhode Island and New York. There are special elections that are happening in other places with county boards of elections bringing out the equipment and setting stuff up. A whole bunch of things that are special elections that may have been done at another day and time have all been scheduled for November 4th as well. Take advantage of having everything out and ready to go. And special elections include, but are not limited to, in Washington state, there are seats for both the state Senate and the state House of Representatives, as well as a seat on the appellate court that will be voted on. In Texas, a couple of them state senators and House of Representative folk, and one city, at least one city councilor, in this case, Houston City Council, are up for election. And there are another couple of seats in Allegheny, Pennsylvania, and even in worn, torn Portland, Oregon, they're able to put together an election on election day. So if you're in those places or any of the others, please get out and go vote. Now, there are also recall elections. There's a sort of a twist where some places, not every place, but some places allow their elected officials to be recalled if petitions are signed, if someone challenging them can get enough signatures. It's usually a percentage of the vote that in which they were elected. So, whether it's 10% or 20% is up to that local jurisdiction to set. But the following recall elections are happening. There's Morrill County in Nebraska, Valley, Nebraska, Fort Myers Beach in Florida, Montrose County in Colorado, and also Poway and Fairfax in California. All have local recall elections where elected officials are being called to the ballot again for the local citizens to decide whether or not they should continue or not. And
Did
then
that?
just go ahead.
I wonder if I missed it. Does that account for California's Prop 50 as well? Isn't that next week?
Prop 50, absolutely. There's, as I said, state issues there are statewide uh, issues as well as local elected officials. So Prop 50 is in there, and there's a whole bunch of laundry list of stuff in New York as well, issues and elected officials. Uh, then after November 4th, if you go down to November 15th, there's a couple of places that have held off on having their elections. So not having them on the 4th, but pushing them back about 10 days back to the 15th. And that includes Louisiana, where the entire state is having its election on the 15th. And that's for a general election. And then there are a few local positions, including St. Laundry, where the chief of police in Grand Courteau is up for election. And in Orleans Parish, there's the clerk criminal district court and council members in District A and E. So local things happening as well all over. And that's your Election Central report. Thank you for listening. There are elections happening everywhere. Get registered and go vote. So that also that's the end of the Election Central report. But speaking of elections, You're talking
Yes.
about Prop 50, of course, is the big one, I think, in California, and a big difference of redistricting than in, say, Texas, where the legislature just shoved something through real quick, did it on party lines so they could get it passed. It is a Republican-run jurisdiction, and then California said, "Well, that's a problem with what you're doing, and we want to do something, but we're also not going to do it the same way you do it. We're not just going to shove it down people's throats. We're going to take it to the ballot. We're going to let the people have the say on it." So it's a much better way to do that. And so Prop 50 is what they're calling it. Do you know
I
much
mean,
more? Or
Matt, democracy is a little passe anymore. Are we ready for something new and vibrant? It's one man, one vote gig. It's just dusty, Grandpa. No,
clearly there are some who think it has gone its way.
all that's old is new again. Sorry, I just couldn't go on without interjecting that. I'll stop.
No, no, please. Um, don't stop. But we can move on to what's happening in New York. I talked about this a couple of times because I think it's really showing whereas the Republicans have been very concerned about purifying their ranks. They've worked hard to eject any moderate or force them into being an extremist, and it's MAGA extremists at that. But New York's mayor race sort of shows the Democratic side of that same um, sort of attempt at clearing things up by the establishment, but the establishment's losing, and that's the difference. Instead of the establishment becoming the extreme, the establishment is running into a brick wall in the mayor's race in New York. The actually there were two sort of icons of that the establishment, so to speak. There was Eric Adams, who is the current mayor, but will not get a second term now, and Andrew Cuomo, who's a former governor, who was booted out of office for sexually assaulting 13 women, and also during the COVID times was forcing seniors into senior homes, so that resulting in more deaths, and then underreporting that because he was working on trying to get a book deal on how well he was handling the COVID emergency. So the book deal trumped having people alive. Um, Go ahead.
I think it's troubling how corruption has become the new inbreeding. Like it used to be monarchs, uh, they kept everything too tight with their cousins, and they all ended up having four fingers and seven toes, and they had to knock it off because it was bringing them down. And now our current system is so decrepit and sort of inverted and inbred that the establishment pick is Cuomo. Cuomo. No Cuomo, I heard someone say. Uh, and you've turned the thing into a ditch when your best candidate is a Trump or is a Cuomo. You have to turn around and go back. You've gone too far. You missed your exit. Turn around. Nothing good is down this road. And anyway, I'll stop there because I have
No,
more
no.
to say, but we've got it. We've got it. It's appropriate to the segment later. But
This is
yeah,
uh,
the company we find ourselves in indicates a problem.
yeah. This was the thing. Even at the No Kings rallies, at both the first one and the second one, there were people holding signs saying stuff like "No Cuomo, no ICE." You know, Cuomo comes out and says, "Oh well, I'm going to stand up to Trump," and it's like, "Oh, when? When you're at a champagne brunch with him in the White House, you're
Right,
gonna, you're gonna stand up to him then, are you?"
right.
And
When he reaches for your glass of champagne, that's when you're going to tell him.
yeah, right, right, exactly. This is the same cloth. There's these are people who um, hang out on the weekends on their yachts together. This is not somebody who's going to stand up to anybody.
Right. He's not
And
going to steal any of Trump's masseuses.
exactly, and even well, and one of his attack lines in this past week as we're coming up to the general. So let me first clarify that Zoran Mamdani is the Democratic nominee. He won in the primary. He crushed Cuomo by 13%, and that was in a crowded field. It wasn't just one on one, and he still crushed him by 13%. So Mamdani is the Democrat in the race. Cuomo stayed in the race as an independent. I think his party is officially listed as the Fight and Deliver Party. So that is clearly an independent party, and in New York you can do that sort of thing. You can get a line on the ballot by a party. Uh, Curtis Sliwa, I don't know if that name means anything to you if you're not from New York City, but he's the guy who has led the Guardian Angels at some point and has his own
With the
conservative. Yeah,
hat.
exactly. The
The guy with
famous
the
red
hat, yeah.
beret.
A lot of people would know his look before they would know his name. I'm one of them. But yeah, he's the guy with the red beret, talking tough.
Yep, yep. He's a tough guy like that, and he's also got his conservative talk show where he has for years been holding down the conservative side of the opinions.
Hmm,
And although there is one thing where he also is a very strong advocate for animal welfare. So there are some people who are pointing that out specifically, um, and it's a fair point to make.
sure.
Though the animals don't actually vote, so I don't know what that's going to do to help him, but it will do
Despite
something.
despite what you heard on AM radio, right?
And then yeah, and then exactly, and everything else is a conservative, rather conservative opinions. Although the one opinion that has been made very clear by him during the election is that he cannot stand Andrew Cuomo. So he has been one of the leading attack dogs against Cuomo, and Cuomo has been trying to force him out of the race,
Okay,
feeling
so
that if
that's
he
two good points for him. All right, I'm starting to like this guy. I'm coming around. He's good to dogs and he hates Cuomo. All right, I could have a beer with him.
he's yeah.
It's
So
all
they,
about
I mean,
common ground, Matt. Politics is all about common ground.
what you can achieve? Yes. Yeah. So that is true. And so Cuomo pushed out Adams, who Adams decided once he lost the actually he Adams quit the Democratic Party before the primary. So officially, Adams wasn't in the Democratic primary, um, and then decided he'd run as an independent. And then uh, apparently there was a lot of pressure on him to quit, and he did. So Cuomo feels that even though he called Cuomo a snake and a liar one week, the next week he was endorsing him, pulling out of the race. So Cuomo feels that he's getting the Adams vote. I don't think he's getting all of the Adams vote, but he'll get some of it. Not enough to make a difference. And then he was trying to push Sliwa out, thinking that he'd get all of the Sliwa vote. But Sliwa basically said, "Take a hike, pal. I'm not going anywhere. I'm
Don't
not gonna."
underestimate the lying snake vote. Not to be
there's
underestimated.
there's plenty of it here. There's plenty of it here.
Don't
So
sleep on it. That's a
there's
powerful
yeah,
lobby right there.
exactly. It's not nothing. But what it is certainly not enough. Um, if things are going the way they seem to be, then actually Mondami may even outdo himself in having larger than a 13% beating of Cuomo. We'll see. Election night is the November 4th. Early voting has started and people have been getting out of the polls. They say that, in fact, more people have voted in early voting in the first 2 days than during all of the early voting in the last election. If that's true, that's very intriguing because it shows people are getting involved. It doesn't really give an indication of who is getting the vote. I think it's probably whatever the. I think it's probably in line with whatever the final results will be, but I don't think it's necessary. Some people are saying if it that must be new voters, and therefore, if they're new voters, they must be supporters of Mamdani. I don't know if that's true because I think that there are communities that are very that Cuomo has worked very hard to send fear into, and fear works. So I think that there's a couple of different communities that have probably been coming out early to get it done, to get their votes in.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you remember better. I hope you remember better than I do. Wasn't this the same vibe for the last presidential election? I thought that there was a strong mail in presence that indicated that it was going to be strong for Kamala. And then I don't remember how that turned out, but uh, I thought that there was a big push for mail out voting, record breaking amounts of voting ahead of time, uh, and then it didn't come. It didn't mean what they thought it meant. Apparently, I don't know exactly how that shook out, or even if that was the dynamic. Do you have a memory of that?
Yeah, that's absolutely what happened. And um, the weird backlash was that Trump has been so desperate to tell people to not early vote, but it wasn't exactly harmful to him. So that's an interesting thing for him to say because he just felt it was something that may not that enough people were saying it on TV apparently that he picked up on that as the thing that must be true because if
Right.
it's on TV it has to be true. And in the end, I think you're absolutely right. It turned out that it wasn't exactly the landslide towards Harris that the pundits were professing. And even in the primary in the mayor's race, they up to a half an hour after the polls closed, everybody, and I mean everybody, media, pundits, guy down on the corner, I mean everybody was saying the same thing, which was, "Oh, Mondami's going to be crushed by Cuomo. Cuomo's a legend. His family are legends. There's no way this guy, this upstart, is going to be able to do well at all. He's just going to get smeared." And within a half an hour, within after the first hour of the polls being closed and results coming in, Cuomo conceded. So it 60 minutes made the difference in that race after closing because the reality is it's the votes that matter. So what you see or what you think, okay,
Right.
everybody's got an opinion, but what really matters is in an election, it's who voted how and what happens after you count the votes.
Well, these elections are so fraught, and there's so much riding on them, and then we're so polarized that the human mind is just hungry for any indicator. Which way is the wind blowing? Is there reason to hope? Should I pack now? you know, so it's no surprise that people are looking for which way the weather vane is pointing.
Exactly, and humans are always looking for that. Our brains are wired to want to find a pattern and to want to see something in the tea leaves and to want to
That's right.
be able to pick it out just by signs and wonders. And okay, but that
Yep.
doesn't work.
Yep.
The
Can't count them
psychological,
before they're hatched.
yeah. Although there is another point that you just made that was there are people who will say, do I need to pack? Do I need to leave? And at least two people, George Santos, the previous Republican who represented a congressional district down in that's part Queens and part Long Island, who went to jail for identity fraud and was recently pardoned by Trump. George Santos has come out and said, if Mamdani wins, I am going to leave the state of New York. And Andrew Cuomo has said, if I lose to Mamdani, I am going to move to Florida.
I would like to point out that no one ever went wrong following something that George Santos said. That guy, true to his word every time.
Exactly. Well, but I mean, in this case, it does give hope.
Absolute. Well, I would. I listen. I hope he follows through on it, but he'll do whatever he wants to do. He's not chained to his word. Unfortunately, I wish. I hope he does.
Right, right. And listen, we can always start a GoFundMe. He tends to like those sort of things. or at least accessing them. And like
Right.
he did with the dog of the veteran who he helped start a GoFundMe and then stole the money and didn't give it to the veteran or the dog.
Yeah, we can lead
So
him away. I picture a trail of 20s leading to a cardboard box on a stick with a rope tied to it. Then we'll have him.
nice. We'll get him back in there. There were also some in New York. There are also some ballot questions that I thought I'd mention because there's a lot going on within a minute, and I'm not going to be able to go into detail, but I will say there are six ballot questions. This is not California, where there tend to be 50 or 60 on each ballot, but there are six, and the first one is a statewide ballot question. It's some people who built a Olympic arena up in upstate used some land next to a park, a state park. And because they did it on the correct side of the border of that, that was great. Well, the Olympics are making a return, or the World Cup is coming, and there's some other things coming that require some space. So the folks who built this a couple of decades ago said, "Oh, gosh, we have this park right there, and we've got uh, a sporting area already set up. So why don't we use that, and we can maybe just dig out a little bit further out and get into it." And they wound up digging into the state park's land and using about 175 acres. And once they started the project, yeah, exactly. And once they started the project, somebody went, "Oh, hey, you know, you guys are on the wrong side of that border now, and that could be a problem." So there was some negotiating that took place, and it was decided that the state would find 2,500 acres somewhere else. And if they promised to add it to the state park or designated as state park, that if they did that with 2,500 acres, then they'd give these guys that 175 acres to finish their sporting place. And initially, there were some people, I don't know about that. But one of the leading um, environmental groups got involved with the whole negotiating, and apparently they were part of this agreement where there would be an additional 2,500 added if these guys were given this 175. So Prop 1 is that question: should we do that legally? Should we allow that to be the way things are?
Gotcha.
So yes or no, that's your decision. But there's the background for it. Then 2 through 6 all relate to, well, 2 through 5 are about affordable housing. In New York, there's been a real issue with not winding up with affordable housing in the city. And when you look a little deeper, what you find is there's certain neighborhoods that do a lot of building and a lot of affordable housing, but it's the same dozen places. And then there's another 20 or so that don't. And if you don't have the whole place building it, then it's a problem because you're never going to be able to make enough. So now we're a million houses back, behind the times. We need about a million to catch up. But how do we do that? So these the mayor put together a charter review commission, and they put out an idea where we're going to basically cut the city council out of land planning. So we'll have like one of the questions is we're going to put together a special 3-person committee of the mayor, the comptroller, and the city council's president. And when they oh, I'm sorry, it's the mayor and the borough president. We have a position called borough president, and the city council president. The three of them will make a commission that will look at affordable housing plans, and it will take a 2-to-1 vote to pass stuff. So they feel they can start sort of getting more things done if they don't allow the council to vote on it, but allow this little commission instead. It will probably get more programs through, but the city council aren't big fans of the idea, and the 50 of them are not going to just sit back and let it happen. So we'll see if voters let it happen. Another thing is an idea that smaller plans are allowed an easier route. So if you're only building 4 or 5 units, right now it's almost as expensive to build 4 or 5 units as it is to build a skyscraper. So if given the choice, which do you think the developers want to do? They want to do a skyscraper. They can get more money. They can focus on just the luxury housing and eliminate the affordable, blah, blah, blah. So um, there's a feeling that if there's an easier path for the smaller projects, that maybe that will help start getting things moving instead of having a full 7 month program to get a project through, make it 3 months. Okay, so that's another valid question. Um, and there are actually two others are sort of tangential. There's a question 5, which is currently all the boroughs have their own paper-based planning process. So everybody measures slightly different. Everybody has their own borough version. So all of it is in paper as well. So what they're saying with Prop 5 is let's get everything digitalized. Make certain everything's uniform and make certain it's on digital and not paper. Pretty good idea. Vote yes on 5. And 6 is they want to talk about combining local elections during the presidential year. So instead of having a separate election for the local stuff every off year, they'll bring it in line with the presidential every 4 years, every on year, so to speak, and have everything all at one, have all of those at one time. So that's a discussion you can have. Some people like it, some people not so much. So those are the ballot questions, at least in New York City. Another issue is the Maine Senate race. You mentioned what was going on out in California, and this is the other end of the country. There's a Democrat by the name of Plattner and another Democrat, Janet Mills. They're vying for the Democratic nomination to take on Susan Collins. And as I'm sure you know from the news, Susan Collins every 6 or 8 months comes out and says, "Boy, that Trump fella, I don't know. I'm on the
I'm
fence about
concerned.
him, but
That's right.
yeah, he's really put me back on that fence. I don't know what to think." And even people in Maine are saying, "Okay, enough." I think that that even they're getting to a point where they're thinking this is a little bit overdone at this point.
I've seen
Um,
comparisons of Lucy and the football.
Losing in the football, nice. Very very true because she always winds up taking on the party line, but there's always this big display of should I or shouldn't I? I really don't know. I'm really going to talk to him this time. Oh, I did talk to him and he promised that he would not do things. So the Democrat might have a leg up in the election, might be able to get that seat for the Democrats in the Senate, which would be a big deal. Um, However, the two Democrats have taken different paths to get where they're going. Janet Mills was formerly in the Maine House of Representatives. She was formerly the Attorney General and then also the governor. So she has taken a very traditional political history to get to this running for Senate. And this Plattner fella, apparently he was a Marine. He's a vet. He was an oyster farmer and a little bit of a political job in that he was a harbor master, which is a position that has a quasi-governmental function, taking care of a harbor. So he has sort of that working man cred that people seem to like. And the question is, there's been a couple of speed bumps on the way. Apparently, he had a bunch of tattoos, one of which was a considered a symbol for white supremacy, or one of those bad guy groups. He
Nazi
claims it was
symbology, yeah.
Nazis, and apparently he said that he didn't know that at the time he got it, or something. I don't know about the excuse of it all. But
Well, he
he
was in the
also
Marines, and as I heard it told, they were all out getting tattoos, and they wanted to just pick some badass skull designs, and supposedly nobody knew, and nobody told him that it was exactly like or much like something that some really productive Nazis had chosen in the past. And so supposedly the idea is that he didn't know at the time, and I hear he's since covered them up.
well, that's all right then.
I mean, it's an
Um,
interesting conversation because you get to where, do you want to win this election, or do you want to have perfect candidates? Because there is no perfect candidate. Zoran Mamdani is he's not your usual order. He's got some big ideas, and they're a little radical. But people like it, and maybe it's time for radical because the status quo getting a little stale and not really working for the people. So what if you have a bit of a Nazi Democrat? Is that so bad?
well,
When you put it like that, of
yeah,
course it's
yeah,
ridiculous.
actually, I do have to object to that. Yeah, I do
Yeah,
object to that.
I go too
But I
far
will,
satirically, but that's the idea.
right. I mean, I will say that you know the Marines. I can't say that I certainly believe that they were out getting tattoos, and I certainly believe they wanted the most aggressive
That's
thing they
right.
could find. So okay, um, he covered it up, and that's good. Uh, you're right, though. It's kind of a non-issue. I mean, it's not gonna unless he professes that is his ideology, which he is clearly not doing. I don't know that it should be an issue that should prevent someone from voting for him. But uh, it is an election, and it is people actually in Maine it could help. So I
I'll
don't
tell
know
you.
if that's yeah. I mean, I lived in Maine for a little while too. I know uh, some uh, some of the folks that
Mainers.
live there, and so I will say it's a good thing that it is a primary election, that he has a chance to go up against Mills, and that the voters can decide for themselves. They can decide if this matters or not. They can decide whether they believe him or not, and that's that's why we have the process.
I gotta say, I agree with you. Nobody's perfect, and if you spend all day waiting for the perfect candidate, it's never going to happen. You got to take people as they are. On the other hand, I think it's reasonable that people are sensitive to it. We live in a time where we're surrounded by racists. They're in office. They want your vote, and today's racist doesn't tell you they're racist. It's coded language. It's dog whistles. It's we're just going to round up the criminals, and then we go round up all the brown ones. Apparently that's code for criminal. So today's racist won't tell you they're racist, and if you catch them, wait, I'm still waiting on Pete Hegseth to admit whatever that shit is on his chest, and they never will. They'll always swear that they're not racist. They'll always swear that they're just as American as you and me, and a little more American than that guy. But the fact is, the modern Nazis and modern racists have learned the elementary rule: don't tell anybody. You'll sucker in 100 stupid people before one smart person goes, hey, you know what? If you just don't listen to what they say and watch what they do, they're pretty racist. And so, yeah, first step is we don't talk about Fight Club. And that really works. A lot of people, I've known some people who are pretty sketchy in that way, but it took me a while because they would say all the right things. They just don't admit to the things that they don't talk about in front of people who they don't talk about it in front of, and it's gotten them pretty far. So when someone comes around and maybe they lied about their tattoo, maybe they didn't, maybe it was a story that makes sense and maybe it wasn't, benefit of the doubt it coming at a premium these days, and it's really tough. So I get it. I think you're right. I think I don't have any reason to think the guy is a racist necessarily. And I'm skeptical, but we can't wait all day for perfect candidates. We'll never win another election ever.
It's got to be his actions that speak for him, not his, uh,
Yeah.
not a stupid tattoo he got when he was a stupid
And really,
kid.
when's the last time somebody got voted into power on a bunch of lies and turned on us? I mean, I can't think of an example. We're
That
probably
never happened.
fine. Yeah, not even likely.
Um, I believe that's spelled Fetterman. Is it? I don't
Yeah,
know.
right? I was
Um,
gonna go with Fetterman, but I decided to take it easy.
well, leaving Maine behind, I know I did. We are going to move on to our next issue, and that would be um, this is a little more. This is maybe a little more serious. This is Pam Bondi, and apparently a young fellow was arrested for putting a price on her head, a price of $45,000 to have her killed, which is certainly should be um, unacceptable. And not to mention, that it most certainly is not the way to to deal with the criminal activity she involves herself with. But there are ways to handle those situations, and this is not it. So I don't know that we should be calling for a violent attack on Pam Bondi. But do you have a thought on this, Tom? Or
I mean, I've looked at the story. It's somebody posted on TikTok, um, Bondi with a crosshair on her, and it reminds me of something we had around the era of Sarah Palin, where there was a crosshair put over someone who was in politics, and it was an implied threat. As I recall, it was a Republican crosshair. I could be wrong. Anyway, and it blew over. I feel like putting 45,000 on it makes it a little specific. uh, uh, so I don't know. Other than that, the person that did it has a criminal history, so that's not good for him. Uh,
well, and apparently also that this is a weird twist to it is that it was social media that led to his being identified and called out.
hmm.
Apparently, TikTok, and apparently the authorities, the FBI in this case, had used TikTok and Google and Comcast and a bunch of tracing him through social media in order to identify him and to locate him.
I
So,
bet we're all being surveilled pretty closely. I doubt we could get away with very much. I can't even, uh, you know, there's a lot of things you can't post, and they're fully within the law. You can't get away with. I would like to point out again, still, and I hope I never do stop pointing out that the party that seems to be stoking stochastic violence seems to be inheriting the stochastic violence first. If you keep raising a bunch of rabid beasts in a cage, poking them with a stick, when you let them loose, they're going to come for you first. They've got to stop doing it. And until they do stop doing it, I hope it never stops blowing up in their face. Uh, and because there's a bit of karma there, and I'm kind of a fan of karma. And it may be the only revenge we get in these days is the law of probability and Murphy. But yeah, they keep stoking this as if the people that they drive to violence are going to go where they want them to go, or never go where they don't expect them to go. It's a fool's errand, and I listen. Civilized people have been calling for them to knock it off since the word go. And the bellicose among us, the chest beaters, the people who want this kind of trouble, they don't think, they never can imagine it's going to happen to them. Uh, and I think it's just folly. And I just want to point out that if they wouldn't start nothing, there wouldn't be nothing.
Right, right. All of a sudden, it goes from thoughts and prayers to, "Hey, you're so violent."
Right? Where
Okay.
why all the animosity?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, excellent point. That's I wish I'd made that point myself. I think that's excellent for you to
You know,
point
if
it
I'd
out.
stopped interrupting you, you're probably on your way to do it.
Well, you are much too kind, sir. Um, I will say, and the another point that you made was that this guy, Alvalos, was apparently had some charges on him from before, some misdemeanor battery, and then another charge of stalking in another place. So he's actually somebody who was a bad guy. Uh,
Mm.
this is
Avalos,
probably
yeah.
not
Tyler Maxon Avalos.
Avalos. Thank you. But so it should it was it is serious in and of itself, but it is also more so because of having that sort of background where taking action on this sort of thing is in his history, in something that was done. Speaking of people with criminal backgrounds and people who should be taken serious and maybe at their word or at their poem's word for the criminal activity they are involved with, it is once again time for us to do our check in on the Epstein count up. Days
There it
since the
is.
unredacted Epstein list has not been released. As of today is 3,788 days.
And
Well,
counting.
and, and counting. And we will continue to count up as the days rack up because that's the way this is playing out. Actually, I believe that at some point they even said that the report was finished and they weren't going to release it, or that it never existed and they weren't going to release it, or they were just about to release it and it did disappear. I don't know. I can't keep up, but whatever it is, it has not been uh, given out to the public unredacted in 3,788 days, and there you jolly well are.
But we live in hope.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
I live in hope. Matt is not my neighbor in hope. That's okay.
Not in this. Yeah, I think that they worked very hard to bury it. It was used. It exists. It was used because it was a good strike, but that he knew all along he was in it, and that he would certainly make certain it never got released. Anyway, thank you for joining us at PolitiPod Live for political talk. And if you want political laughs, you can join Tom and myself and another dozen of our friends who help put together a political comedy podcast called PolitiPod, which can be found on soundcloud.com/PolitiPod. This is
Tom Bickle.
and Matt Nisanoff saying good night.
Good night.